Apply. Imagine standing before a wall so massive it stretches farther than the human eye can see, a wall born not from simple stone, but from the sweat, sacrifice, apply, and secrets of millions who lived centuries before us. A wall that whispers stories of empires rising, invaders trembling, and mysteries still buried deep within its stones. Tonight, apply. We take you on a journey through the dust of history to uncover the hidden truths behind one of the world's greatest wonders, the Great Wall of China, centuries before emperors dreamed of uniting a nation. Apply. Before the world even knew of a structure called the Great Wall of China, something remarkable was already taking shape. The story does not begin with one ruler, one dynasty, apply, or one great plan. It begins more than 700 years ago in an age when China was not one land, but a fractured patchwork of rival kingdoms. Apply. Imagine a land divided into 7 warring states, each hungry for survival, each desperate for power, and each building walls not to protect an empire, apply, but to protect themselves from one another. These walls were not yet the grand stone battlements we picture today, but simple earthen mounds, hardened with reeds, layers of damp soil, apply, and timber. Yet, even then, they carried within them the seed of something extraordinary. As the spring and autumn period gave way to the warring states era, apply, the need for defense grew urgent. Neighbor fought neighbor, kingdom against kingdom, and beyond the borders, nomadic tribes swept across the steppes. Apply, fierce horsemen striking swiftly at villages and towns. The answer was walls, but not the kind meant to impress, the kind meant to survive. Farmers dropped their plows. Apply, prisoners laid down their chains and soldiers exchanged swords for shovels. With bare hands and simple tools, they began to carve lines of defense across valleys and mountains. Apply, walls of clay and stone snaking across the land like scars of fear and determination. What makes this beginning so haunting is not just the ingenuity of these ancient builders, apply, but the human story cemented within the walls. These were not projects of pride but of desperation. Every kingdom poured its lifeblood into building barriers, each wall a statement. Apply. This is ours, and we will defend it. Some stretched for hundreds of miles, others only guarded small strongholds. Apply. But together they marked the landscape of a country at war with itself. These fragments, scattered like broken bones across the land, apply, would one day become the skeleton of the greatest wonder mankind has ever built. Imagine for a moment standing there more than 2 millennia ago as walls rose from the earth. Apply. The sound of hammers echoed in the hills, the groan of oxen pulling timber filled the air, and the cries of exhausted laborers blended with the wind. Apply. They worked under the searing sun and bitter frost, knowing these walls might not even stop the next invasion, and yet they built. Each pile of earth, each stone stacked upon another, apply, was not just defense, it was hope, it was survival, it was defiance against the uncertainty of tomorrow. These early walls tell us something profound. Apply, the Great Wall was never a single creation, but a tapestry woven over centuries. What began as scattered defenses born from fear and rivalry, would one day be stitched together into a monument of unimaginable scale. But at this first stage, there was no grandeur, no majestic towers, no armies parading along the ramparts. Apply, there was only dust, sweat, and the will to endure. Apply. The men and women who built them could never have known that their crude embankments were the first brush strokes on a canvas that would become one of the most iconic structures in all of human history. And so, apply, when we look at the Great Wall today, stretching over deserts, mountains, and rivers, we must remember that its story begins not with emperors carving legacies, apply, but with ordinary people, peasants, soldiers, and slaves, driven by necessity, working in silence. Their walls, rough and fragile, may not have stood the test of time, apply, but their spirit endures within the stones we see today. The true beginning of the Great Wall is not just about defense, it's about human resilience, the instinct to protect, apply, and the unshakable will to survive in a world where danger lurked at every border. The Great Wall, as we often imagine it, begins with one man, the first emperor of China, apply, Qin Shi Huang. His name echoes through history, a ruler both feared and admired, a man obsessed with power, immortality, and control. Before him, apply, the land we now call China was fractured, a chessboard of kingdoms at war, walls scattered across the terrain like broken barriers of distrust. Apply, but when Qin Shi Huang rose to power in the 3rd century BCE, he carried a vision unlike any before him. His dream was not just to rule a kingdom, apply, but to forge an empire that would last forever. And at the heart of that dream was a wall, not many walls, but a single unbroken line of defense stretching across mountains, apply, deserts, and rivers. The order was given in 221 BCE. Imagine the scene: imperial messengers racing across the land, scrolls of command sealed in crimson ink, apply, carrying the will of the emperor himself. Local lords, soldiers, peasants, and even prisoners were summoned. Thousands upon thousands were forced to leave their villages, their families, apply, and their farms behind, compelled to take part in a project larger than any one life. This was not a request, it was a decree. For Qin Shi Huang, the wall was not just about defense. Apply. It was about unity, about binding together the patchwork of warring states into one indestructible shield. He ordered the connecting of the old fragmented walls, Apply, stitching them together into a single colossal barrier. In his mind, Apply. Only then would the empire stand unshakable against the fierce nomads of the north, but the emperor's vision came at a terrible price. Apply. Laborers toiled under the scorching sun and the freezing winds of the mountains. They hauled stones and earth with their bare hands, dragging timber across barren landscapes. Apply. Men collapsed under the weight of exhaustion, women carried supplies along treacherous paths, and prisoners in chains found their punishment extended to the very edges of civilization. Apply. Entire armies were assigned to construction instead of battle. The emperor believed that this sacrifice was necessary. Apply. That a wall stretching thousands of miles would ensure eternal peace. To him, human lives were fleeting. Apply. The wall would be forever. The grandeur of his vision was matched only by the ruthlessness with which it was enforced. Ancient records speak of families torn apart, villages emptied. Apply. And fields left to wither because their people were seized to serve the emperor's dream. Apply. So many perished during construction that legends speak of the Great Wall as the longest cemetery on earth. Some say the bones of the dead became part of its foundation. Apply, though historians argue whether this is fact or folklore. Still, the image endures, a wall built not only of stone and soul, but of human sacrifice. Yet, despite the suffering, Apply, something extraordinary was being born. The disconnected fragments of the past began to merge into something unified, a symbol of strength and endurance. For the first time, Apply, China was bound not just by conquest, but by a physical line drawn across the earth. The wall itself became a message to outsiders. It warned of a power too great to challenge. Apply to the people within. It declared the emperor's authority stretching from horizon to horizon. But Qin Shi Huang's wall was not indestructible. Parts of it crumbled with time. Apply, storms and neglect. Dynasties that followed would rebuild and expand, adding towers, fortresses, and new sections across generations. Still, Apply. The emperor's bold command to link the walls into one grand barrier was the spark that gave birth to the Great Wall as we know it. It was not perfection, Apply, but it was the beginning of permanence, and with every stone lifted, with every mile connected, his dream took shape layer by layer. Apply until the earth itself seemed to carry his will. The first emperor did not live forever, though he sought the secret of immortality. His empire, too, faced its share of turmoil. Apply, but the wall endured. Long after his tomb was sealed with rivers of mercury, long after his dynasty collapsed, the stones he ordered to be set remained. Apply, standing as silent witnesses to his vision. The wall was not just a defense, it was an idea, a declaration carved in the very landscape. Apply, a reminder that one man's will could reshape a nation and leave a shadow stretching across centuries. There is a legend that whispers through the valleys of China. Apply, carried on the winds that brush against the Great Wall. It says this wall was not built only of stone and earth, Apply, but of human lives, that the very foundation of its strength lies in the blood, sweat, and sacrifice of countless souls who never returned home. Whether myth or truth, Apply, this tale has clung to the Great Wall for centuries, earning it the haunting title, Apply, the longest cemetery on earth. When construction began under the first emperor and continued for dynasties after, the work was relentless, merciless. Imagine the scene, Apply, armies of laborers stretching as far as the eye could see, thousands of men and women pressed into service, their bodies bowed under the crushing weight of timber, stone, and clay. Apply, soldiers marched alongside them, not as comrades but as guards, ensuring no one could escape their duty. Farmers were torn from their fields, prisoners from their chains. Apply, scholars from their scrolls, all bound together by the emperor's command to raise this wall from the earth. Their tools were crude, their hands bare. Apply, yet the expectation was absolute build or die trying. The terrain itself showed no mercy, jagged cliffs, burning deserts, icy mountains. The wall was demanded everywhere. Apply, across landscapes that defied human endurance. In winter, frostbite gnawed at their flesh. In summer, the sun scorched their backs until their skin blistered. Food was scarce. Apply, water scarcer. Camps became graveyards as starvation, exhaustion, and disease claimed lives faster than the stones could be laid. For some, Apply, death was not the end, for it is said their bodies were buried within the very walls they built, sealed forever into the structure, an eternal part of its strength. Apply, whether literal or symbolic, the truth is undeniable. This wall was built on sacrifice. Among the most haunting stories is that of a woman named Meng Jiangnu. Her husband, Apply, taken from their home to labor on the wall, never returned. Grief consumed her, and legend says she traveled thousands of miles to find him. When she learned of his death, Apply, her cries were so powerful that a section of the wall collapsed, revealing his bones beneath. Her story became a symbol of sorrow, etched into the folklore of China. Apply, a reminder that behind the emperor's grand vision were broken families and endless mourning. She stands not just as a myth, but as a voice for those whose names were never recorded. Apply, whose blood mingled with the dust of the stones. And yet, for all the tragedy, there is another truth. Those countless forgotten lives gave the wall its resilience. Apply, every mile that still stands, every stone that has defied centuries of wind and storm carries their memory. Apply, the Great Wall is not only a monument to emperors and dynasties, it is a monument to the laborers, soldiers, and prisoners whose strength and suffering turned vision into reality. Apply, without them, the wall would never have risen, never have stretched its shadow across mountains and deserts. Apply, never have become the symbol of China itself. So when you walk along the Great Wall today, when your hands trace the cold stone and your feet press against the ancient path, Apply, you are not walking on an empty ruin. You are walking on sacrifice. You are walking on stories untold, lives lost, dreams cut short. Every brick, every layer, Apply is a testament to the human cost of ambition, a reminder that greatness often demands a price far heavier than history is willing to admit. And within those stones, silent but eternal, Apply. The voices of the forgotten remain. When we look at the Great Wall today, we see stone, mortar, and history stacked high into the sky. Apply. But hidden within those stones are whispers, messages carved by hands long gone, voices that refuse to be silenced. For centuries, the wall has been more than a fortress. Apply has been a canvas, a diary, a record etched in secret lines and symbols. Every scratch, every chisel mark, Apply, every faded inscription holds a piece of the human story that built this monument. The builders, pressed into labor, left behind more than sweat and blood. They left their names, Apply, their hopes, their silent rebellion in the form of carved characters. In forgotten stretches of the wall, Apply, archaeologists have discovered markings that tell us of entire villages forced into service. Apply, a single name scratched deep into stone might be the only trace of a life otherwise erased from history. Some were prayers for strength, others curses aimed at the empire. Apply, some simply a mark of existence, I was here. These faint strokes hidden from the emperor's gaze remind us that even in chains, Apply, the human spirit sought a way to speak. Not all messages were cries of despair. Many were practical. Stonecutters marked their work with symbols. Apply. Military units carved emblems into the walls they defended. Stonemasons left dates and locations of their labor. Inscriptions recorded the weight of bricks. Apply. The names of officials overseeing construction, even the dynasties that claimed credit for particular sections. They were messages for the future. Apply, evidence that this vast wall was not the work of faceless hands, but of people whose identities mattered. Apply, even if only for a fleeting moment. But deeper within these carvings lies something far more mysterious. Apply, some symbols remain undeciphered, patterns and marks that scholars debate to this day. Were they secret codes used by workers to communicate under the watchful eyes of soldiers? Apply, were they messages of defiance veiled in symbols to escape detection, or perhaps they were spiritual? Apply, carved talismans meant to protect against the countless dangers of labor in such harsh and unforgiving terrain. Each unanswered question adds another layer to the wall's enigma. Apply, transforming it from stone barrier to silent storyteller. Imagine standing on a remote section. Apply, are your fingers brushing against the faint grooves of a character carved over 2,000 years ago. In that instant, you are connected not to emperors, not to generals, Apply, but to the nameless builder who pressed his identity into stone, desperate to be remembered. His story, his suffering, his defiance lives on in that mark. Apply. These messages bridge the gulf of centuries, proof that history is not just written in books. Apply. But in the quiet scratches left behind by those history tried to forget, the wall was also a place of defense, and soldiers stationed there etched their own stories. Apply. Some left behind warnings of approaching nomads, notes of battles fought, or names of fallen comrades. Others recorded poems, their verses speaking of loneliness on the desolate frontier. Apply, of staring across endless wilderness with only the wall as companion. In their words, carved into stone or written on hidden slips of bamboo found within the ruins. Apply. We glimpse the humanity of those tasked with guarding this massive barrier. These hidden messages reveal a truth that textbooks often overlook. Apply. The Great Wall is not only the achievement of emperors, it is the collective memory of laborers, artisans, soldiers, and families. It is their fingerprints pressed into the stones. Apply. Their voices buried in carvings, their resistance encoded in marks no emperor could erase. With every inscription discovered, another secret comes to light. Apply. Another story unfolds from the silence of the past. So the next time you imagine the Great Wall, don't just picture the towers and battlements stretching across the horizon. Apply. Picture the names carved in hidden corners, the prayers etched into forgotten stones, the poems scratched beneath layers of dust. Apply. For within those subtle markings lies the true history of the wall, not the grandeur of rulers, but the humanity of those who lived and labored in its shadow. Apply. The Great Wall does not only stand as stone, It speaks quietly but eternally through the hidden messages left behind. Apply. The Great Wall of China stretches across more than 13,000 miles, yet much of its vast body still lies hidden, broken, or buried by the sands of time. Apply. It is not simply a wall, it is a labyrinth of secrets, a colossal organism that seems almost alive, breathing with the mysteries of centuries. Apply. To walk upon it is to step onto the bones of history, but to look beyond the visible stones is to realize that much of its story remains untold. Even today, scholars and explorers admit, apply, we do not fully know the Great Wall. In its most famous sections, the wall appears as a majestic serpent of stone winding across mountains, proudly restored for the eyes of millions. Apply. But beyond the tourist paths, far from the polished battlements of Beijing, lie forgotten stretches swallowed by desert, eroded by wind, hidden beneath overgrown forests. Apply. These crumbling remains are the wall's true self, revealing that what we see is but a fragment of an immense network. Some sections are little more than mounds of earth. Apply. Others are piles of stone scattered like broken teeth. Yet even in their ruin, they whisper secrets of a time when the wall stood as the ultimate symbol of endurance. Hidden tunnels, Apply, discovered by archaeologists, tell us that the wall was not merely a defensive line above ground. Subterranean passageways connected watchtowers, allowing soldiers to move unseen. Apply, carrying messages and supplies beneath the earth. Some of these tunnels remain unexplored, their entrances sealed by collapse or buried under centuries of soil. Apply, what lies inside them, forgotten weapons, sealed chambers, or even lost relics, remains a question that continues to ignite curiosity. Apply, each discovery only deepens the sense that the wall still guards its mysteries jealously. The landscape itself adds to the wall's enigma. In the Gobi Desert, Apply, sections vanish beneath shifting sands, emerging only when fierce winds tear the dunes apart. In the high mountains, walls are overgrown with wild forests. Apply, their stones reclaimed by nature, accessible only to the most daring explorers. Legends speak of ghostly soldiers seen along these isolated stretches. Apply, echoes of the countless lives lost during construction and defense. Whether folklore or truth, Apply, such tales give the wall an aura of something more than stone, a living monument where the past refuses to sleep. Even its length remains a matter of awe. For centuries, Apply, people debated how far the wall actually stretched. It was only in recent years, with the help of satellite imaging and archaeological surveys, that we began to measure its true scale. Apply, over 13,000 miles of walls, trenches, natural barriers, and fortifications, more than half the circumference of the Earth. Yet still new discoveries are made. Apply, hidden foundations appear in remote areas, revealing that the wall extended farther than once believed, covering territories forgotten by time. Apply, each revelation reminds us that we know only fragments of its entirety. The Great Wall is also layered with secrets of its use. Beyond defense, Apply, it functions as a vast system of communication. Watchtowers, placed like beacons in the sky, could send signals of smoke by day and fire by night. Apply, relaying messages across hundreds of miles in a matter of hours. Yet within these towers, archaeologists have found unexpected items. Pottery, food remains. Apply, even children's toys, suggesting that they were not just military posts, but homes where families once lived, hidden lives preserved within crumbling walls. Apply. These discoveries challenged the very image of the wall as cold stone. It was, for many, a place of life as much as war, and still, mysteries endure. Apply. What undiscovered tunnels remain beneath its foundations? What hidden inscriptions lie buried in collapsed stones? What treasures of ancient dynasties may still rest in sealed chambers? Apply, untouched for thousands of years. The Great Wall, vast and unyielding, continues to guard these answers. It is not just a ruin to be admired. Apply, nor simply a wonder of the world. It is a riddle carved into the earth, an endless story written in dust and stone. Apply, daring us to uncover what lies beyond its silent face. The Great Wall of China is often remembered as a shield, a mighty defense against nomadic invasions. Apply, but its true purpose goes far deeper than stone battlements and watchtowers. To understand the wall, you must see it not just as a barrier, but as a declaration of power. Apply, a tool of control and a message carved across the land. It was a wall built to keep enemies out, yes, but it was also built to keep the empire in. For emperors, Apply, the wall was more than protection. It was a symbol stretching across mountains and deserts, reminding everyone, peasants, soldiers, Apply, even distant tribes, that the emperor's reach was limitless. Each stone shouted authority. Apply. Each tower echoed with the presence of a ruler whose power was written into the very landscape. It was not only an obstacle for armies, it was a line of control, a way to regulate trade. Apply, movement and communication across an empire too vast to govern by decree alone. Merchants traveling along the Silk Road felt the wall's presence at every step. Apply, gateways and passes acted as checkpoints where goods could be taxed and inspected, where soldiers could control what entered and left the empire. The wall was a customs line. Apply, a spine of regulation that turned China's borders into opportunities for profit and surveillance. To pass through was not just a matter of crossing stone, apply, but of acknowledging imperial power, apply. Every caravan that moved beneath its shadows carried not only silk and spices, but also the weight of the emperor's watchful eye. But its purpose did not stop there. Apply. The wall was also a stage, a place for soldiers to send signals, to spread word of threats across impossible distances. Smoke by day, fire by night, messages leapt from tower to tower. Apply. Racing across hundreds of miles with astonishing speed. An army's movement, an enemy's advance, even a single rider at the horizon could be reported in hours. Apply. Thanks to this ancient system of communication, it was not simply defense, it was information, the heartbeat of an empire that thrived on control. And yet, apply, the wall carried a psychological weight as powerful as its stones. To outsiders, it was an unbroken sign of strength, a warning that beyond it lay a nation too formidable to conquer. Apply, to those within, it was a reminder of order, of unity under the emperor. It did not just divide land, it divided worlds. It separated chaos from civilization, the known from the unknown. Apply, the empire from the endless wilderness. Even centuries later, when dynasties fell and wars raged, the wall remained a silent witness, still standing. Apply, still declaring the authority of those long gone. So the unseen purpose of the Great Wall is not just defense, it is legacy. It was a monument to power, to ambition. Apply, to the belief that a ruler's will could stretch as far as the horizon itself. To this day, as travelers walk along its stones, apply, they do not only see a wall, they feel the weight of a message sent across centuries, that the strength of an empire is written not in words, but in the endurance of stone. And now, apply. As we close this journey through the secrets of the Great Wall, ask yourself, what other monuments of history hold mysteries still waiting to be revealed? The pyramids of Egypt. Apply. The lost city of Machu Picchu, or perhaps the secrets of the Roman Colosseum. Tell us in the comments below what ancient wonder you'd like to see next. Apply, because your choice could guide our next exploration. If you were amazed by the hidden truths within the Great Wall of China, make sure to hit that like button. Apply, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you never miss a journey into the mysteries of our past. Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, apply. The stones of history continue to whisper, and together we'll keep listening.